So we are less than 2 weeks away now from Star Wars Hunters, and even though I do think this game is a genuine banger that a lot of people are probably going to sleep on, that doesn't mean I think the game is perfect. And just like I do with most new upcoming games, today I wanted to talk about the 5 biggest areas of concern that I have when it comes to Star Wars Hunters. Now, the first area of concern that I have is mostly to do with the balancing, and especially when it comes to the new hunters that will be added to the game later on down the line. Now, the balancing right now is actually really solid, other than maybe a few hunters like Scorer and Sentinel who are currently running a little bit rampant in the soft launch, but they have had a long time to work on the current balancing since most of these characters have been playable for over 2 years now, and even with the newer characters like Char and Diago, they have been around long enough to kind of get the balancing right. And so even though the balancing right now is fairly decent, that doesn't mean it will be once the game has been out for say 6 months. I am slightly worried that when we do get new hunters, for example Arantal, who looks like he's going to be dropping at the launch of the game, the Mandalorian character, I'm a little bit concerned that characters like that are going to be a little bit overpowered because they haven't had the same amount of testing that all of the other characters that are currently in the game have had through the soft launch. Taking Arantal for an example, it looks like he's going to have some sort of jetpack ability, which, like I said, could make him kind of overpowered if not done properly. Due to just the general nature of this game, it is very crucial that they get the balancing right. This is a 4v4 arena shooter, and so if you've got one hunter out there that is just running rampant, it is going to be pretty frustrating for pretty much every other player who isn't playing as that hunter. And obviously when it comes to games like this, that can genuinely ruin the game if they don't stay on top of it. So that's one area that I'm a little bit concerned. Like I said, the current balancing is actually really good considering the difference between all of the different hunters. So I think over time they will definitely get it right, but at least when it comes to the new hunters being added, I'm a little bit worried they're going to be pretty damn overpowered. Or to be fair, it could even go the other way where they're launching hunters who they don't want to make overpowered, so then they are actually kind of useless and no one wants to play them. So hopefully they can get that stuff right. That is probably the most crucial element to any game like this. Now, the next area of concern that I have is to do with essentially predatory microtransaction systems. I'm sure you guys will know that mobile games are often known for having some pretty scummy monetization systems that for some reason people don't seem to care about as much as they do when it comes to console games and PC games. Mobile games out there do tend to just kind of get away with that. I'm honestly not sure why, but I'm kind of worried that same thing could potentially happen with this game down the line. Now, Hunters isn't just a mobile game, it is obviously going to be on the Switch, and there is every chance this game could eventually make its way to other consoles as well. So this isn't just a typical mobile game where it's only available on mobile, and to be honest, what we have seen so far in the game hasn't really been that bad at all. I do recall way back when the game launched, or soft launched back in 2021, there were a few systems that were a little bit dodgy, and us as a community actually called out the devs on it and they quickly changed it. It was mostly to do with the fact that you could essentially pay, it was pretty similar to Battlefront actually, that you could kind of pay money to unlock hunters a bit quicker than you could normally, and we as a community called them out on that and they did eventually change that. So it hasn't been bad by any means. In the soft launch they pretty much only sell like cosmetic stuff, and that's exactly how it should be. But I think I will always just carry some level of concern when it comes to these sorts of games because, like I said, for some reason mobile games do just get away with that. I think no one seems to care that most mobile games out there are bordering on pay to win, and if they're not pay to win they will charge you like $20 for a skin that barely changes anything. And so I think I'll always have some level of concern about that, especially because this is being published by Zynga and they are very well known within the mobile community. They've made plenty of mobile games already, so they probably know what they can and can't get away with. I'm a little bit concerned that it would be pretty easy for them to implement systems where, like I said earlier, we do have to pay for hunters or pay to unlock stuff earlier, and I really hope they don't go down that path. I think after Battlefront 2, all Star Wars games, especially multiplayer games, really do need to stay away from that sort of stuff, otherwise they risk just being dead on arrival in my opinion, because I think Star Wars fans have been so burned by that with Battlefront 2 that it is kind of ingrained in our memories, and I don't think any Star Wars game, let alone like another Battlefront, I think literally any Star Wars multiplayer game cannot afford to do that because they risk just alienating their player base. Again, we saw the absolute roasting that EA got from Battlefront 2, and I genuinely think it would be even worse if another game comes along and does pretty much the same thing, because they should have learned from seeing what happened with Battlefront 2. Now, before we go on to the next point, if you guys are new to the channel and you are interested in more Star Wars Hunters content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more content on the way, both in the lead up to launch and obviously plenty more after launch too, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, the next area of concern that I have is to do with controllers. Essentially, I'm a little bit concerned that controllers will essentially make mobile play obsolete. I have been playing on a controller for a few months now, and I will say it definitely makes the game a bit easier, simply because I'm just used to playing with a controller, whereas playing handheld with a mobile phone, I'm just not used to that. Maybe that's just me being a boomer, but I do think that it is definitely going to be easier to play with a controller. And obviously for me personally, I do not really care about that. I'm literally never going to play it without a controller. I'll either play on the Switch when it launches, or even if I'm traveling, for example, I'll probably just bring my controller with me, and if I'm playing it on my phone, I'll still play it with a controller anyway. So for me, it doesn't really matter all that much, but obviously not everyone is going to be playing that way. Not everyone's going to play it on the Switch, and even a lot of people who play on mobile, they may just want to play touchscreen. Maybe there are plenty of people out there who play other shooters with their touchscreen, and I do think that's a little bit unfair if it's objectively harder to play it that way compared to playing it with the controller, which for those people, that is obviously not fair at all. So I would personally love to see the option for input-based matchmaking in the casual modes, and probably even more so in ranked as well, but that could get a little bit sticky. That could mean that obviously if you're really good with a touchscreen and you're just putting the input-based matchmaking in when it comes to ranked, you could be playing against people who are essentially worse than the rest of us are playing in our own ranked modes, and you could make your way up the ranks a bit easier. So there is a little bit of like concern about how they go about doing that, but I think some sort of input-based matchmaking would be, at least like an option for it anyway, would be a really good way to do it, where if you just search normally, maybe it just puts everyone into the same lobbies, but if you really don't want to play against people playing with a controller, you can at least put that into the settings, and then you're searching against people who are only playing without a controller. Some sort of option like that would potentially be a fix for those who do just want to play on the touchscreen. Now, another area of concern I have is to do with the gameplay loop if they don't constantly change things up with limited time modes, for example. This game is an absolute blast, but I'm curious to see how it goes when it comes to playing for hours on end. Right now, I'm a busy guy, and with the game not fully being out yet, I'm not spending, hours per day playing it or anything like that. I usually only play for like 30-minute sessions just to kind of get my challenges done and level up my arena pass and stuff like that, because obviously with the game not being out, I don't want to just grind the hell out of it and be bored by the time it actually launches. So right now, I don't really play long sessions of this game, but obviously once the game is fully here and I can play it on my Switch especially, I will be absolutely flogging the hell out of this game for probably at least an hour per day, if not probably multiple hour sessions. And I am very curious to see how the gameplay loop feels when we want to play for hours on end at a time. I'm kind of wondering if it will get really repetitive and boring after a while, which is why, like I said, I would love to see them do a lot of like limited time modes and really just change things up to keep it fresh each and every week. I think games like this do really need like weekly changes when it comes to different modes, different challenges and events going on and stuff like that. You do need to keep games like this a bit more fresh and entertaining compared to different shooters out there. For example, a game like Battlefield, where matches can last like 30 minutes or so, and therefore if you play for an hour, you're maybe only playing 2 games, and therefore over the course of a month, you're not playing like game after game after game, and the game in general just becomes a lot less repetitive than games like Hunters, where in a half an hour session, you may play literally like close to 10 games at some point. So I'm curious to see what they do there. I really hope it doesn't get boring after hours and hours of playtime. I don't think it will, because I've honestly clocked up like 300 or 400 hours of this game already, and I do still have an absolute blast when I play. So I don't think that is an area we need to be really concerned about, but it is definitely something I'm curious to see when we actually sit down and play the game for hours on end at a time. Now, the last area of concern that I have is to do with squad stacking, and I think this could really ruin people's experience experience when it comes to trying to play solo. Now, I mostly play solo, and most of the time it is completely fine, but every now and then you will come up against a 4 stack of enemies who are all playing in a squad. They're probably all in a Discord call and full on like working together as if this is a real military operation. And when that happens, those teams pretty much always dominate games. You stand almost zero chance against teams like that, and it can make the gameplay experience a little bit less enjoyable. Now, to be completely honest, I don't really have an issue with that. This is a team-oriented game, and playing as a team in a way should be rewarded. So I'm not really saying like, oh, don't let people stack up. I think that's completely fine. And if a 4 stack comes and dominates me playing solo, like, fair enough, because I'm playing on my own, I probably should expect that. But with that being said, I do also think that players who want to just jump on solo for a few quick games should be able to do so without just getting dominated every single game. At the end of the day, the game is meant to be fun for everyone, and if the game cannot possibly be fun without being in a 4 stack, that is obviously not very fun for everyone playing the game. I think some sort of like solo queue matchmaking would be a good option. There will hopefully be a big enough player base that it shouldn't really split the player base or anything like that. It's not like it's going to result in not many people searching for the same sorts of games. And so I think there is a workaround for that. Even if it's not solo queuing, hopefully they do just try and prioritize the solo element when it comes to just regular matchmaking anyway. So when you search for a game, if you are solo, it might not guarantee that you don't get a 4 stack, but it just prioritizes other lobbies where people are playing solo as well. I think that is a good way to do it, and I'm sure they probably will. Pretty much every multiplayer game already bakes that into their matchmaking anyway. But yeah, I hope they do just try to sort of account for that, because I think if you're coming up against 4 stacks every single game, then as a solo player, you're pretty much never going to be able to have fun. And considering most people will play the game solo, that's obviously not a good thing at all for the game. So those are some areas that I'm a little bit concerned about when it comes to Star Wars Hunters. Overall, I am still so confident this game is going to be an absolute blast. I've played enough hours now to know that, yeah, once people get their hands on this, is going to be an absolute blast for most people out there. But I am definitely curious to see how it goes with the global launch, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think too. So be sure to leave a comment down below and let me know your own thoughts. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.